How's it going, my friends? Friends. Welcome to our channel, for Fun and Friends. I am Avalon.
Did you almost forget your name?
I did almost forget my name. We're a little hyper because we had lots and lots of sugary snacks for lunch for some reason.
Well, you did.
Yeah, I ate like half a thing of like that really caramelly,
like zebra popcorn type of thing. I'm over here just having salsa chips and some crackers.
Hey, but I've been working out.
You have. I have too, just not the last couple days. Oh, I'm Sabrina, by the way.
Yeah, she forgot her name too.
No, I was caught up on you. Making sure you didn't forget who you were. Anyways.
Yeah, welcome. I think I already said that, but we'll repeat
Welcome again. Hi. We're, drinking some tea.
Yep,
So,
kind of like, it was the same day we recorded
Recording.
the last episode.
Chapter 5 was the last video.
Yep, so now we're doing Chapter 6, logically.
Mm-hmm. Just enjoying our tea, some snacks.
And good company.
Yes, good company.
This is like second breakfast, because I already had breakfast.
This is my first breakfast. This is the first thing I've had in 36 hours.
What about second breakfast? Luncheon.
Luncheon?
Luncheon. Anyway, yeah, let's do a recap. Do you remember the last chapter that we read, like, literally, like, an hour ago?
Yeah, so Stefan is having some internal crisis.
For real,
Something is, like, compelling him to want to go after Elena, like, actually, like, kill her to some degree or change her. He was stalking Elena, Bonnie, and Meredith when they were in the cemetery and they were running away from whatever they felt was stalking them or trying to hurt them. He saw it from the outside looking in, and he found Elena's ribbon at the cemetery. He's like all sniffing it. He's like obsessing with her now, even though he was just like, no, go away, don't want anything to do with you.
Come here, go
now,
away.
Exactly.
Go away.
Exactly. Now he's all up wanting to be a part of her life or whatever. And he also doesn't know what was in the cemetery. He just knows that he felt it, and that it made him feel compelled to want to have human blood, which he's fought this urge or hasn't had this urge in centuries. Mm-hmm. Now he went and killed somebody under this bridge.
Well, I mean, he's not dead yet. I'm not dead yet.
Yet. He did attack someone under the bridge, which we find out later is homeless, or seems to be homeless. And then
Bonnie's sister's leg.
Yeah, Bonnie's sister.
She's
no.
Don't go there. Don't go there.
Mm-hmm.
People get murdered.
Which, in the TV series, Bonnie didn't have a sister. It was her grandma.
It was her grams.
It was her grams. But Bonnie's sister warned her not to go there because there was an attack, and they thought it was that the police thought it was an animal, but they realizing that it's a human that attacked this person who ripped out their throat, for the most part, and that she's warning them not to go. And then now Elena is fast forwarding and at school, and she has a picture of this guy, her gardener from France.
Yeah,
from France. And she told one of the girls at school who I guess gossips and is telling her that they have a love connection and that they're secretly writing to each other because he's 21.
They're so in love.
They're
forbidden
so in
love.
Technically, to get at Stefan is how I feel.
Yeah, but I was really thinking about those too. But while she was in France, wasn't she still dating Matt?
Yeah. She was still dating Matt.
She's basically admitting that she was like
cheating on Matt.
Yeah.
When she wasn't. That was just our gardener. The picture was just of the shirtless guy was just the gardener who's married and has 2 kids.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Scandalous. I'm wondering how Matt's gonna react. And then we saw a journal entry.
Yeah, and we don't know who it was written by, but it was about like plan 1 didn't work, so we're on plan B.
Yeah. But it was not signed.
We don't know who wrote it.
Mysterious.
So we're hypothesizing that it's from this person or creature that was in a cemetery stalking everybody. So, yeah.
All right. Chapter 6.
Here we
My
go.
favorite number. September 26th. Dear Diary, I'm sorry it's been so long and I can't really explain why I haven't written, except there are so many things I feel frightened to talk about, even to you. First, the most terrible thing happened. The day that Bonnie and Meredith and I were at the cemetery, an old man was attacked there.
Bonnie also doesn't realize or remembers that she had a vision of telling Elena somebody's waiting for her at the end of the bridge.
Yep.
And Bonnie's fighting with them, but it seems like she knows something that she does, why she doesn't want to admit that she said that or remembers that she says that.
She also said, Meredith, you're gonna die young. Except I think that was from the chapter before.
Yeah.
She's making all these creepy-ass predictions.
Yeah, she's making predictions all of a sudden, and she's acting like she doesn't remember, but I think she does, and it scares her because she doesn't understand.
Is that an official prediction?
Yeah.
Going on the prediction board?
Yes. It's going up.
It's going up. All right, here we go. The old man was attacked there and almost killed. Well, you know what? We need to write down all of these predictions.
We should. When we're done with this one, then we'll start writing.
We'll write them down, and then, like, with your recap, we'll go over your predictions.
Mm-hmm.
We'll do a Sabrina recap, and then Sabrina predictions, and then we'll read.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sounds like a plan.
Okay.
Real time.
Figuring this stuff out. The police still hadn't found the person who did it. People think the old man was crazy because he had woken up and raving about eyes in the dark and oak trees and things. But I remember what happened to us that night, and I wonder. It scares me. Everyone was scared for a while, and all of the kids that stay inside after dark or go out in... All the kids had to stay inside after dark or go out in groups. But it's been about 3 weeks now, and no more attacks, so excitement is dying down. Judith says it must have been another vagrant who did it. Tyler Smallwood's father even suggested that the old man might have done it to himself, though I would like to see someone trying to bite their own throat. But mostly, what I've been busy with is Plan B. Oh, so it was not the bad guy, it was her. Elena, with her plan at school.
Yeah.
Plan B.
That's what it was.
It was Jean-Claude.
Jean-Claude.
Oh, Jean-Claude. As far as it goes, it's been going well. I've gotten several letters and a bouquet of red roses from Jean-Claude. Meredith's uncle is a florist, and everyone seems to have forgotten that I was ever interested in Stefan. So my social position is secure. Even Caroline hasn't been making any trouble. In fact, I don't know what Caroline's been doing these days, and I don't care. I never see her at lunch or at school anymore. She seems to have drawn away from the old crowd completely. There's only one thing I do care about right now, Stefan. Even Bonnie and Meredith don't realize how important he is to me. I'm afraid to tell them. I'm afraid what they'll think I'm crazy. At school, I wear a mask of calm and control, but inside, well, every day it just gets worse. Aunt Judith has started to worry about me. She says I don't eat enough these days, and she's right. I can't seem to concentrate in my classes or even on anything fun like haunted house fundraiser. I can't concentrate on anything but him, and I don't understand why. He hasn't spoken to me since that horrible afternoon, but I'll tell you something strange. Last week in history class, I glanced up and caught him looking at me. We were sitting a few seats apart, and he was completely turned sideways in his desk, just looking. For a moment, I felt almost frightened, and my heart started pounding, and we just stared at each other. And then he looked away. But since then, it's happened twice more, and each time I felt his eyes on me before I saw them. This is the literal truth. I know it's not my imagination. He isn't like any boy I've ever known. He seems isolated, so lonely, even though it's his own choice. He's made quite a hit in the football team, but he doesn't hang around with any of the guys, maybe except Matt. Matt's the only one he talks to. He doesn't hang around with any of the girls either, and I can see. So maybe the narc rumor is doing some good, but it's more than like he's avoiding other people than avoiding him. It's more like he's avoiding other people than they're avoiding him. He disappears in between classes and after football practice, and I've never seen him in the cafeteria. He's never invited anyone to his room at the boarding house. He never visits the coffee shop after school. So how can I ever get him someplace where he can't run into me? So how can I ever get him someplace where he can't run from me? Run from me, not run into me. Run to me. Okay. This is the real problem with Plan B, Bonnie says. Why not get stuck in a thunderstorm with him so you can huddle together to conserve body horn? And Meredith suggested that my car break down in front of the boarding house, but neither of these ideas is practical, and I'm going insane with coming up with something better. Every day it's getting worse for me. I feel as if I were a clock or something, winding up tighter and tighter. If I don't find something to do soon, I was going to say die. The solution came to her suddenly and simply. She felt sorry about Matt. She knew he'd been hurt by the Jean-Claude rumor. He'd hardly spoken to her since the story had broken, usually passing her with a quick nod. And when she ran into him one day in an empty hall outside of creative writing, he wouldn't meet her eyes. Matt, she began. She wanted to tell him that it wasn't true, that she never had started seeing another boy without telling him first. She wanted to tell him that she'd never meant to hurt him and that she'd felt terrible now, but she didn't know how to begin. Finally, she just blurted out, "I'm sorry," and turned to go to class. "Elena," he said, and she turned back. He was looking at her now, at least, his eyes lingering on her lips, her hair. Then he shook his head as if to say the joke was on him. "Is that French guy for real?" he finally demanded. "No," said Elena immediately, without hesitation. "I made him up," she added simply, "to show everyone I wasn't upset about." She broke off. "About Stefan, I get it," Matt nodded, looking both grimmer and somewhat more understanding. "Look, Elena, that was pretty lousy of him, but I don't think he meant it personally. He's that way with everybody. Except you. No, he talks to me sometimes, but not about anything personal. He never says anything about his family or what he does outside of school. It's like there's a wall around him that I can't get through. I don't think he'll ever let anybody get through that wall, which is a damn shame because I think behind it he's miserable." Elena pondered this, fascinated by a view of Stefan she'd never considered before. He always seemed so confident, so controlled, and undisturbed. But then she knew she seemed that way herself to other people. Was it possible that underneath he was confused and as unhappy as she was? It was just then that the idea came, and it was ridiculously simple. No complicated schemes, no thunderstorms or cars breaking down. "Matt," she said slowly, "don't you think it would be a good thing if somebody did get behind that wall? A good thing for Stefan, I mean? Don't you think that would be the best thing that could happen to him?" She looked at him up and down intensely, willing him to understand. He stared at her for a moment, then shut his eyes briefly and shook his head in disbelief. "Elena," he said, "you are incredible. You twist people around your little finger, and I don't even know how you're doing it. And now you're going to ask me to do something to help you ambush Stefan, and I'm such a dumb sucker I might even agree to do it." "You're not dumb, you're a gentleman, and I do want to ask you as a favor, but if you don't think it's right, I don't want to hurt Stefan, and I don't want to hurt you." "Don't you?" "No, I know how that must sound, but it's true. I only want..." She broke off again. How could she explain what she wanted when she didn't even understand it herself? "You only want everybody and everything revolving around Elena Gilbert," he said bitterly. "You only want everything you don't have." Shocked, she stepped back and looked at him. Her throat swelled and warmth gathered in her eyes. "Don't," he said. "Elena, don't look like that." "I'm sorry," he sighed. "All right. What is it I'm supposed to do? Hog tie him and dump him at your doorstep?"
Practically.
Pretty much. "No," said Elena, still trying to make the tears go back where they belonged. "I only wanted you to get him to come to the homecoming dance next week." Matt's expression was odd. "You just want him to be at the dance?" Elena nodded. "All right, I'm pretty sure he'll be there. And Elena, there really isn't anybody you and..." We'll try this again. "And Elena, there really isn't anybody but you I want to take." "All right," Elena said after a moment, "and well, thank you."
I always feel so bad for Matt. Even in the TV series, I always felt bad for him. Because he does, actually love her. He really does.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like,
and he
that's
does
not
everything
good enough for her.
She literally does everything
to hurt him.
He literally does everything for her, that she ever asks.
Yeah.
And he always gets the short end of the stick with everybody. Like, even in the TV show, like, with Vicky.
Oh, Vicky broke him.
Yeah. Like,
Vicky. Oh, no, I'm thinking of Elena's brother.
yeah.
Elena's brother was in love.
Yeah,
Vicky.
well, like, Vicky died.
Mm-hmm.
And then the fact that Vicky died, like, broke him. And then, like, there was all these other people that he ended up going with, and, like, they either ended up, like, dead, or, like, something happened to them where they couldn't be with him anymore.
Yeah.
He just, like, got the short end of the stick. It's so sad.
No, poor guy. I always felt so bad for him. You almost, like, want to give him a hug. Like, come here. I'm sorry.
Matt's expression was still particular. Don't thank me, Elena. It's nothing, really. She was puzzled over that, and he turned away and walked down the hall. Hold still, said Meredith, giving Elena's hair a reproving twitch. I still think, said Bonnie from her window seat, that they were both wonderful. Who? Elena murmured absently. As if you don't know, said Bonnie, those two guys of yours who pulled off the last-minute miracle at the game yesterday. When Stefan caught that pass, I thought I was going to faint or throw up. Oh, please, said Meredith. And Matt, that boy is simply poetry in motion. And neither of them is mine, Elena said flatly. Under Meredith's expert fingers, her hair was becoming a work of art, a mass of solid twisted gold, and the dress was all right. The iced violet color brought out the violet in her eyes. But even to herself, she looked pale and steely, not softly, flushed with excitement, but white and determined, like a very young soldier being sent to the front lines. Standing on the football field yesterday, when her name was announced as homecoming queen, she had only one thought in her mind. He couldn't refuse to dance with her. If he came to the dance at all, he couldn't refuse the homecoming queen. And stand in front of the mirror now, she said it to herself again. Tonight, anyone you want will be yours, Bonnie said, saying something. And listen, when you get rid of Matt, can I take him off your hands and comfort him? Oh, Bonnie.
Bonnie.
Oh, Bon. Meredith snorted. What's Raymond gonna think? Oh, you can comfort him. But really, Elena, I like Matt. And once you home in on Stefan, your threesome is about to get a little crowded. So, do whatever you want with Matt. Matt deserves some consideration. He's certainly not going to get it from me, Elena thought. She still couldn't exactly believe what she was doing to him. But just now, she couldn't afford to second-guess herself. She needed all her strength and concentration. There. Meredith put the last pin in Elena's hair. Now look at us, the homecoming queen and her court or part of it anyway. You're beautiful. Is that a royal we? Elena said mockingly. But it was true. They were beautiful. Meredith's dress was pure sweep of burgundy satin, gathered tight at the waist and pouring into folds from her hips. Her dark hair hung loose down her back, and Bonnie, as she stood up and joined the others in front of the mirror, was like a shimmering party favor in a pink taffeta and black sequins. As for herself, Elena scanned her image with an experienced eye and thought again. The dress is all right. The only other phrase that came to mind was crystallized violets. Her grandmother had kept a little jar of them, real flowers dipped in crystallized sugar and frozen. They went downstairs together as they had for every dance since the 7th grade, except that before Caroline had always been with them. Elena realized with faint surprise that she didn't even know who Caroline was going with tonight. Aunt Judith and Robert, soon to be Uncle Robert, were in the living room, along with Margaret in her pajamas. Oh, you girls look so lovely, said Aunt Judith, as flattery and excitement as if she were going to the dance herself. She kissed Elena and Margaret held her arms out for a hug. You're pretty, she said with 4-year-old simplicity. Robert was looking at Elena, too. He blinked, opened his mouth, and closed it again. What's the matter, Bob? Oh, he looked at Aunt Judith, seeming embarrassed. Well, actually, it just occurred to me that Elena is a form of the name Helen, and for some reason I was thinking of Helen of Troy. Beautiful and doomed, said Bonnie happily. Well, yes, said Robert, not looking happy at all. Elena said nothing. The doorbell rang. Matt was on the step, in his family's blue sports car. With him were Ed Goff, Meredith State, and Raymond Hernandez, Bonnie's. Elena looked for Stefan. He's probably already there, said Matt, interpreting her glance. Listen, Elena. But whatever he had to say was cut off in the chatter from the other couples. Bonnie and Raymond went with him in Matt's car and kept up the constant stream of witticisms all the way to the school. Music drifted out the open doors of the auditorium. As Elena stepped out of the car, a curious certainty rushed over her. Something was going to happen. She realized looking through the square bulk of the school building. The peaceful low gear of the last few weeks was about to slip into high. I'm ready, she thought, and hoped it was true. Inside, it was a kaleidoscope of color and activity. She and Matt were mobbed the instant they came in, and compliments rained down on both of them. Elena's dress, her hair, her flowers. Matt was a legend in making another Joe Montana a sure bet for the athletics scholarship. In the dizzying whirl that had been brought to life and breath to her, Elena kept searching for one dark head. Tyler Smallwood was breathing heavily on her, smelling of punch and brute and doublemint gum. His date was looking murderous. Elena ignored him in the hopes that they would go away. Mr. Tanner passed by with a soggy paper cup, looking as if his collar was strangling him. Sue Carson, the other senior homecoming princess, breezed up and cooed over the violet dress. Bonnie was already out on the dance floor, shimmering under the lights, but nowhere did Elena see Stefan. One more whiff of doublemint and she was going to be sick. She nudged Matt and they escaped to the refreshment table, where Coach Lyman launched into a critique of the game. Couples and groups came up to them, spending a few minutes and then retreating to make room for the next in line. Just as if they were royalty, thought Elena wildly. She glanced sideways to see if Matt shared her amusement, but he was looking fixedly on his left. She followed his gaze, and there, half concealed between a clutter of football players, was the dark head she had been looking for, unmistakable in the dim light. A thrill went through her, more of pain than anything else. Now what? Said Matt, his jaw set. The hog tying? No, I'm going to dance with him, that's all. I'll wait until we've danced first, if you want. He shook his head, and she set out towards Stefan through the crowd. Piece by piece, Elena registered information about him as she approached. His black blazer was a His black blazer was of a subtly different cut than the other boys, more elegant, and he wore a white cashmere sweater under it. What?
Subtly?
Okay, whatever. I'm not perfect. He stood quite still, not fidgeting, a little apart from the groups around him, and although she could see him only in profile, she could see he wasn't wearing his glasses. He took them off for football, of course, but she'd never seen him close up without them. It made her feel giddy and excited, as if this were a masquerade and the unmasking time had come. She focused on his shoulder and the line of his draw, and then he was turning towards her. In that instant, Elena was aware that she was beautiful. It wasn't the dress or the way her hair was done. She was beautiful in herself, slender, imperial, a thing made of silk and inner fire. She saw his lips part slightly, reflexively, and then looked up into her eyes. Hello. Was that her own voice? So quiet, and self-assured? His eyes were green as oak leaves in the summer. Are you having a good time? She said. I am now. He didn't say it, but she knew it was what he was thinking. She could see it in the way he stared at her. She had never been so sure of her power, except that actually he didn't look as if he were having a good time. He was stricken in pain, as if he couldn't take one more minute of this. The band was starting up a slow dance. He was staring at her, drinking her in, those green eyes darkening, going black with desire. He had the sudden feeling that he might jerk her into him and kiss her hard. without ever saying a word. "Would you like to dance?" she said softly. "I'm playing with fire, with something I don't understand," she thought suddenly, and in that instant she realized that she was frightened. Her heart began pounding violently, as if those green eyes spoke to some part of her that was buried deep beneath the surface, and that part was screaming "danger" at her. Some instinct older than civilization was telling her to run, to flee. She never moved. The same force was terrifying her, was also holding her there. This was out of control, she thought suddenly. Whatever was happening here was beyond her understanding, was nothing normal or sane. But there was no stopping her now, and even while frightened, she was reveling in it. It was the most intense feeling she'd ever experienced with a boy, but nothing at all was happening. He was just gazing at her as if hypnotized, and she was gazing back with the energy shimmering, while the energy shimmered between them like heat and lightning. She saw his eyes go darker, defeated, and felt a wild leap of her own heart as he slowly stretched out one hand. And then it all shattered. "Why, Elena, how sweet you look," said a voice, and Elena's vision was dazzled with gold. It was Caroline. Her auburn hair rich and glossy, her skin tanned to a perfect bronze. She was wearing a dress of pure gold lame that showed an incredible daring amount of perfect skin. She slipped one bare arm through Stefan's and smiled lazily up at him. They were stunning together, like a couple of international models slumming it at a high school dance, far more glamorous and sophisticated than anyone else in the room. "And that little dress is so pretty," continued Caroline, while Elena's mind kept on running on automatic. That casually positive arm linked with Stefan's told her everything, where Caroline had been at lunch these past couple of weeks, and what she'd been doing all that time. "I told Stefan we simply should stop by for a moment, but we're not going to stay long, so if you don't mind if I keep him to myself for the dances, do you?" Elena was strangely calm now. Her mind was humming blank. She said no, of course she wouldn't mind, and watched Caroline move away, a symphony of auburn and gold. Stefan went with her. There was a circle of faces around Elena. She turned from them and came up against Matt. "You knew he was coming with her." "I knew she wanted him to. She's been following him around at lunchtime and after school and kind of forcing herself onto him, but..." A sea still had that perfect artificial calm. She scanned the crowd and saw Bonnie coming towards her and Meredith leaving her table. They'd seen then. Probably everyone had. Without a word to Matt, she moved towards them, heading instinctively for the girls' restroom. It was packed with bodies, and Meredith and Bonnie kept their remarks bright and casual while looking at her with concern. "Did you see that dress?" said Bonnie, squeezing Elena's fingers secretly. "The front must have been held on with super glue. And what's she gonna wear to the next dance? Cellophane?" "Handy wrap," said Meredith. She added a low voice, "Are you okay?" Yes, Elena could see in the mirror as her own eyes were too bright, and there was one spot of color burning on each cheek. She smoothed her hair and turned away. The room emptied, leaving them in privacy. Bonnie was fiddling nervously with a sequin bow at her waist now. "Maybe it isn't such a bad thing after all," she said quietly. "I mean, haven't you thought about everything else? Haven't thought of anything else but him in weeks, nearly a month. And maybe it's now just for the best. You can move on with other things now instead of, chasing him." "Et tu, Brute," thought Elena. "Thank you so much for your support," she said aloud. "Elena, don't be like that," Meredith put in. "She isn't trying to hurt you. She just thinks, and I suppose you think so too. Well, that's fine. I'll just go out and find myself some other things to move on to, like other best friends." She left them staring after her. Outside, she threw herself into a whirl of color and music. She was brighter than she had ever been to any dance before. She danced with everyone, laughing too, loudly flirting with every boy in her path. They were calling her to come up and be crowned. She stood on the stage, looking down at the butterfly-bright figures below. Someone gave her flowers. Someone put a rhinestone tiara on her head. There was clapping. It all passed as if it was a dream. She flirted with Tyler because he was the closest thing he was the closest when she came off the stage. Then she remembered what he and Dick had done to Stefan, and she broke off one of the roses from her bouquet and gave it to him. Matt was looking on from the sidelines, his mouth tight. Tyler's forgotten date was almost in tears. She could smell the alcohol along with the mint on Tyler's breath now, and his face was red. His friends around her, a shouting, laughing crowd, and she saw Dick pour something from the brown paper bag into a glass of punch. She'd never been with this group before. They welcomed her, admiring her, the boys vying for her attention. Jokes flew back and forth, and Elena laughed, even when they didn't make sense. Tyler's arms circled her waist, and she laughed harder. Out of the corner of her eye, she saw Matt shake his head and then walk away. The girls were getting shrill, the boys rowdy. Tyler was nuzzling moistly at her neck. I've got an idea, he announced to the group, hugging Elena even more tightly. Let's go someplace more fun. Somebody shouted, like where, Tyler? Your dad's house? Tyler was grinning, a big, boozy, reckless grin. No, I mean somewhere where we can leave our mark, like the cemetery. The girls squealed, the boys elbowed each other and faked punches. Tyler's date was standing outside the circle. Tyler, that's crazy, she said, her voice high and thin. You know what happened to the old man. I don't want to go there. Great then, you stay here. Tyler fished the keys out of his pocket and waved them at the crowd. Who isn't afraid? Hey, I'm up for it, said Dick, and there was a chorus of approval. Me too, said Elena, clear and defiant. She smiled up at Tyler, and he practically swung her off her feet. And then she and Tyler were leading a noisy, roughhousing group out into the parking lot, where they were all piling into cars, and then Tyler was putting the top of his convertible down, and she was climbing in, with Dick and a girl named Vicki Bennett squashing into the back seat. Elena! Someone shouted from far away, a light from the lighted doorway of the school. Drive, she said to Tyler, taking off the tiara, and the engine growled to life. They burned rubber out of the parking lot, and the cool night wind blew into Elena's face.
She's just being reckless now.
Yeah, she's like,
Fuck it.
Fuck it. He doesn't want me. I'm just gonna live my life.
Yeah, basically. And I still think everything she does is part of a manipulation to get Stefan's attention, no matter what it is.
I agree, and I think, because she said the whole reason that she gave Tyler the rose was because he had been a dick to Stefan.
Yeah.
So she's just kind of like rubbing it in.
Yeah.
Especially because Stefan kind of did the same thing by taking Caroline to the dance. So it's like tit for tat.
Yeah, basically. It is, teenagery.
It is very teenagery.
But I get it. I get it.
Were we that catty when we were teenagers?
No.
I feel like we kind of were. A little bit.
A little
bit, but not to that extent.
No,
That's a little,
not to that extent.
A little overboard.
There was a lot of, like, I'm gonna talk to this person because you hate this person, or because I knew, like, this person talked bad about you, type of thing.
But maybe, like, the cheerleaders were, because we weren't, like, that, I guess. Like, we weren't the in crowd, so I think that we were a little more, I don't know.
I think we were more normal.
I mean,
than dramatic.
Okay, you were so full of drama.
I was not full of drama. I was full of emotions.
Okay.
Because I was going
But
through
isn't
a lot
that
of
what
shit.
Elena's going through? Isn't she full of emotions right now?
Yeah, because she wants attention. She's not getting it.
Specifically from Stefan. I mean, she's getting attention from everybody else. And I think that he basically shot her down for the third time? Third time in a row. She's like...
She's at her wit's end with trying to appeal to Stefan.
So she's just like, screw it. I'm just gonna sleep around.
She's also used to being the center of attention. It seems like her whole life she was, like, Queen Bee and the center of attention. Everybody, like, wanted her, and now that it's not happening, she's not able to
She's
cope.
throwing a tantrum.
Basically, a tantrum, and she doesn't know how to cope with it, and she just had, like, a major loss at such a young age, and she's not able to cope with any of it.
And I'm wondering if part of the attention that she was getting was because of her loss.
Yeah. She's acting out because she's not getting the attention or the desire that she wants because, one, she's no longer getting it from her parents.
Yeah.
Because her parents are dead. And that's a big toll on a kid.
As you know.
As I know. And, And then you just act out and you do reckless things because you're like, well, nothing can hurt me any worse. Nothing can faze me any worse than having a loss like that. So I think a lot of it has to do with that.
Yeah.
Just my social behavioral degree coming in.
Mm-hmm. Personal experiences too.
Yeah, personal experiences. But
yeah,
I think she's just acting out for the most part.
Did you act out
after my mom died?
Yeah,
a little bit, but I was more like, I don't know, like hermit a little bit.
See, that's kind of what I remember as you.
I went into hermit phase,
and I had to like try and pull you out and be
Yeah.
like, hey, let's go do this. Hey, let's go do that.
I didn't really act out until, I guess, when I came back home. After I moved across the country and then I came back.
Well, even that was
I was
kind of.
still a hermit.
I feel like part of the moving across the country too was acting out, because you were like, I think part of it was
Yeah.
like you're like, too many memories. I need space.
Yeah, too much problems, too many issues here.
Yeah, too many memories.
I tried to work on, but other people weren't budging. They weren't trying to help.
They tried to help.
Like my family.
Like, fair enough.
My dad and my brother.
Wow.
But I do think Elena overall is acting out.
Yeah.
And it doesn't seem like she's coped with anything. She's just kind of like, whatever, okay, it happened. Like, they don't think she's in the acceptance phase of grief or, not over the hill.
Well, and then after a while, like, you don't get that much
numb.
attention from the fact that, like, you had this big tragedy happen to you.
Yeah,
so
especially in a small town.
Yeah, so I'm like, okay, well, maybe she's looking for the same amount of attention that she was getting, like, right after her family passed.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just not there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Especially when she's used to it, I think that's what she's trying to hold on to.
I'm also wondering, like, so she went to France with her aunt, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Was that right after her family died?
I think so. Well, actually, I don't know because it didn't say in the book.
Yeah, so I'm wondering how long the
ago.
window was when her parents passed away. Was it right before they went to France, or was it like her parents passed away, she became massively popular at the school because of the fact that her parents died, but then her aunt decided to take her on a trip to try and like cope a little bit, and then she came back? Or was it like her parents died, we're going on a trip? Like, I don't know.
I don't know. How it's like laid out in my perspective is that her parents had just passed, maybe a couple months prior to them going on a trip.
Because she seems pretty close with her aunt now, and I know in the past she said that she wasn't close with her aunt.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering if the closeness was because they had spent more time together, or if it's because they went on the trip and that's what initiated the closeness.
Yeah, I don't know.
Because it also doesn't say like how long she was in France either.
I thought I said it for summer. For the summer.
Did it?
I know.
I don't know. We'll have to look that one up.
Yes, but yeah, I just think it's a lot of her acting out.
I agree.
Because she's not
getting her way.
Yeah, it's not her way. Everything's been out of her control lately, and she probably feels overwhelmed.
And poor Matt, like, she literally was like doing like snuggling with Matt, or not snuggling with Matt, was snuggling with Tyler, who like everyone knows is kind of a dick.
Yeah.
And then she would like look over at him, see Matt being upset, and just continue doing it.
Yeah, she didn't care.
I'm like, really? Like, wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Way to twist the knife in there. Like, I'm also kind of wondering if like she's doing it to get back at Matt too, because she's like, oh, you knew that he would come here with Caroline. So maybe like she's assuming that he like
set it up so she would feel bad, so she would come back to him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So maybe she's doing it on purpose.
Possibly.
So much drama.
Yeah.
So much
drama. Yeah, just a lot.
Too much.
Yeah. A little much. But in teenage world, that is your world.
Yeah.
That is everything when you're a teenager. So,
like, your status and your man.
Yeah, who's talking to who has who was where Friday night or whatever.
Yeah.
Who has what class with whoever. So on and so on. That was the
Status.
The world.
And it was like knowledge was power too.
Yeah.
Like, if you knew what was going on in the school, like, you had more power.
Yeah, you had the upper hand. Yeah, for sure.
And nowadays we're like, oh, I haven't talked to you in like 10 years.
You
so
okay?
nice to see you again. You still alive?
Good to see ya.
Good to see ya.
I know now we can go like, I think the longest we go is like a month.
Yeah.
Without like a lot of communication or seeing each other.
Yeah.
But
and that's just
life.
When life is getting really busy.
Yeah. But yeah.
Alright.
I think we're good.
I think that's it.
Yeah.
Alright.
Okay.
Goodbye, friends.
Friends.